and thank you for joining me on the show today. This is the Now Talks, a collection of inspiring personal stories and leadership lessons from some of the world's most iconic leaders. It is the weekly podcast for women in leadership, brought to you by Nations of Women. My name is Dr. Tina Alton, and I'm your host for today and the coming weeks. Well, over the weekend, my dear husband wanted to do some gardening, even though it was intermittently raining. And obviously, he'd been, preparing, etc., well before yesterday. And one of the things I noticed he'd bought a bag of soil, and I was wondering, like, but there is already soil in the garden. And then we went on to have a conversation about, yes, we have soil in there already, but because of the kind of plants he wanted to put in, and we've got some fruit trees and some vegetables that, we're trying to grow. It required that he actually bought, this specific type of soil in order to really create the right, I would say, place, if you will, the right environments, the right nutrients, everything that would be required for these, fruit trees and plants and vegetables to grow and thrive. So really, that's the perspective with which I am coming to us this week, and really looking at the power of place, how our environment can truly, really, to a very, very large extent, influence our growth, or your growth, if you will, as a leader. Um, and so, just some thoughts here. As you don't necessarily have to be a gardener or have green fingers to actually identify or resonate with, some of the conversation we're going to have today. But it's very, very important to recognize, first of all, the growth it's not a passive experience. It actually necessitates change. It's initiated by deliberately, being mindful of the choices that you make. I once had the opportunity to be mentored by Dr. Nido Kubian, and some insights that I gleaned from him is that successful outcomes really often hinges more on your decisions, on your choices, even more so than your circumstances. So based on that, I want us to look at, the power of place, the place we are, or our environment. How does that impact us as leaders? So first of all is, you have a choice. You have a choice as far as your growth is concerned. And that choice comes with change. So there is a role of both change and choice in your growth as a leader. Right. You've got to, I'm just going to give us some, like, two key thoughts here is, you've got to have strategies for changes as far as growth is concerned. How are you going to grow? Right. You got to have strategies for that. Um, and then you also have to have a proactive mindset. You cannot have just any old mindset if you're going to actually grow as an effective leader. So first of all is that to propel yourself to growth, you need to consider redefining some of the roles that you are involved in, or another way to put it is the hats that you wear. Are these different roles that you are involved in, or the hats you wear, as some, times you can call it, are they better, to be aligned with the individual strengths, or or what, right? You have to also look at, for example, technology. How are you utilizing technology to improve your productivity? Or maybe it requires a physical reorganization of your space in order to foster collaboration or to foster growth. Remember, I shared about my husband having bought this bag of soil. That was a physical reorganization of that physical space that we had, intentionally created to plant these fruit trees and vegetables and even flowers and everything else. As far as a proactive mindset is concerned as well, this involves embracing continuous learning. You can't really get to the point saying, "Oh, hey, I have arrived." I think that every season in our lives is different things that we're learning. Um, and you also have to set very clear goals. You have to maintain flexibility. You have to adapt to new information, for example, or adapt to new changes in the environment. So how are you going to be able to actually do that? How are you going to, um, utilize the benefits of change as well as choices that we make, or these, strategies for change when you're growing and a proactive mindset. So we have, as always, we have some, actionable challenges for you. One of them would be maybe listen to another podcast that features a leader who, have transformed what it is their maybe their business, for example, by changing their strategic approach. And if you go through some of our old podcasts, I think the one by Dr. Amina, the former president of Mauritius, is one such podcast that you can listen to. You can also listen to Lizette Malmberg. She was, and still is a very successful businesswoman. So you can listen to those podcasts and a few more. I can't remember the names of everybody that we've actually interviewed on our podcast, but go through some of the old podcasts, or maybe find another podcast that features another leader who has, gone through transformation, and then make notes of what did you learn from that, right? Or maybe you can outline what is the current strategy that you have as far as your own personal growth is concerned, right? Write that down. And maybe look at, in what ways can you actually enhance or maybe adjust those personal growth goals that you have. Or for some of you, maybe implementing a little change, maybe in your routine or maybe your workspace. And then you want to observe, the effect of that perhaps over a week, over, 21-day period. I don't know. You choose. But whatever happens, you've got to set yourself, some challenges. You've got three options here to choose from. In a practical sense, you want to regularly review and revise what strategies are you using to stay aligned with your growth goals. And it may be, scheduling a monthly strategy session, perhaps with your mentor to help you refine that approach. Another tip I want to give you is you want to stay informed about trends and maybe innovation in your field, to help you to keep your strategies fresh. If you go back to thinking like a gardener, the fruit trees that we were growing or wanting to grow in our garden, my husband had to research that, what kind of environment do they thrive in? What kind of, for example, um, soil does it have to be planted in? Does it have to be directly, planted in a place that has constant sunlight, or does it need shade? You want to think about all of those things, right? And it's the same way when you're sitting with a mentor or reviewing your approach, your strategies, your systems, staying ahead of trends or knowing innovation, help, what is being innovated in my industry. And regularly also seek feedback from, people that you can trust in order to help you actually achieve the desired outcomes. Point number two I want to make is that you have to really assess your environment. You have to modify the environment. Coming back to, so we have, I think, two different types of apple trees. We've got plum tree. We're growing some potatoes. I think there's strawberries. I can't remember the rest of everything else that my husband is doing. But, again, you have to not just assess, but you have to modify. So to grow as a leader, if or effective growth as a leader, um, requires a conducive environment. It is crucial to assess and adjust your surroundings regularly. Right. So do number one is how are you going to do that? Number one is environmental audit. Start with a checklist. Evaluate the adequacies of your workspace. It could be a lighting, it could be noise, it could be technology, it could be team dynamics. There is a number of things that you can, pay attention to and audit within your environment. Two is identify and address anything that is likely to inhibit your growth. And if you think of the garden, it's like, weeds that need to be taken out of the area, or maybe different plants that need to be reported out of the area. I don't know, but you need to address, first of all, identify and address anything that is likely to inhibit your growth. So, for example, you can think about maybe frequent interruptions, outdated processes, maybe unsupported relationships. I don't know. That, sometimes could be a hindrance to your progress or your growth as a leader. What about supportive elements, right? So you can focus on strengthening supportive aspects, for example, maybe your working schedule, um, working at a pace that is much more beneficial, for example, to your health. So if you're a morning person, then play to your strengths. If you're a night person, play to your strengths. Um, Practically, or as far as stepping out of your comfort zone and having interviews, maybe speak to your team members, maybe speak to people, to gather feedback on, currently your environment. Um, yeah, or really dig deep in yourself and be really, really, how would I say it? Really brutal with yourself when you walk into your space. How does that make you feel? How does that make you think, right? um, or map out your physical or your social layout of the space, or noting what are the areas that I need to improve. This is as far as like your physical environment. You might also want to consider rearranging maybe a section of your workspace to help you optimize your functionality. And then you want to observe the impact of that on your productivity, right? Practical application, make targeted adjustments based on your audit. So once you've done the audit, then adjust, make adjustment, but they need to be targeted. For example, reducing clutter or enhancing communal areas. For example, maybe if you work with a team or you have a team, encourage regular, I would say, environment feedback from your team as well, and be willing to adapt and improve. Some other tips is be proactive in seeking out and eliminating anything that can cause distractions, or anything that can potentially make you inefficient as far as the environment in which you work as a leader. And regularly revisit, reassess these environments to ensure that actually remains aligned to your evolving goals and evolving needs as a leader. This third point is so crucial. I think it's one of the vital things that any leader needs to think through, and work on as far as, your environment to help you to grow and thrive. And that is who you're spending your time with. I think I can't remember whether it was this week or last, but certainly in this month we've done there's another podcast on um manage, how a stewardship of time. Stewardship is basically management. So management of your time. How are you stewarding your time? So the influence of those around us can really be profound. I think it's very, very true, and most of us would agree. The research and the notion that we're the sum of the five people that we hang out with, and therefore it's vital to consciously choose the company that you keep in order to foster your growth. So, one is evaluate your relationship. Assess each key relationship to determine how is this impacting on me and my growth as a leader? Is this relationship inspiring me? Is this relationship challenging me? Or perhaps is this relationship holding me back? Well, if it's holding you back, you have your answer, right? You know what to do. And then the second point is cultivating a mindset. I would say growth-minded relationships, right? So seek out and nurture your relationships with individuals who actually embody the traits that you aspire to develop. Why is this important? Because you're the sum of the five people you hang out with. So if you want to have a growth-minded set of relationships, then be in relationship with people who actually embody those traits and challenge you, your thinking, expand who you are, and truly inspire you. Thirdly, reduce negative influences. You've got to have strategies for minimizing and the impact of toxic relationships. And that can be as simple as setting boundaries. You've got to set boundaries and maybe limit interactions. So I can't remember it, but you can certainly Google on Amazon for books on setting boundaries. So as far as taking action point, what can you do? You can again listen to maybe seminar or um a podcast, for example, and I do believe we have a podcast on that. How do you maintain your professional relationships or your professional networks? Or you might want to create a chart of your most frequent contacts and how are these contacts or how are these people actually influencing your growth. So I think that's a great one. Make a chart of your most frequent contacts, the people that you're most frequently in contact with, connecting with, or engaging with. What are the influence on you? Um, another point is engage in a new community activity or professional group to meet potential like-minded allies. And that's exactly what we do here in Nations of Women is providing you as a female leader with a professional, I would say, community where you get to meet like-minded women who are equally focused on, growing themselves as leaders and being effective as leaders. Um, in a practical sense or practical application, is actively work to expand your network by really, I mean, participating in, I would say groups or forums, and what better place to choose than Nations of Women, right? Community. So we're open, we're taking new members, you're welcome to that. But of course, we're not the only, membership what you call a forum or group that there is. There's many other good ones, but what you want is choose one that actually will stretch you, will expand you, and will foster and nurture your growth. Thirdly, regularly evaluate and adjust your inner circle to ensure that it remains conducive to your growth. Tip, prioritize quality over quantity as far as your relationships are concerned. Be intentional about spending time with mentors or maybe colleagues who actually do challenge who you are. And set boundaries with individuals who consistently perhaps drain your energy, consistently pull you down, or maybe detract you from your goals. You want to set boundaries on how to still remain um, perhaps friends, or sometimes it might be family members, in which case you don't get to choose your family, right? But setting healthy, strong, healthy boundaries can help you overcome that if that is the situation which you're in. Four is you've got to challenge yourself. You really have to be willing to step outside of your comfort zone. It is essential, for your growth. To grow as a leader, you need to step out of your comfort zone. But sometimes stepping out of your comfort zone can almost make you feel like you've got to change who you are. Well, the truth is, you don't have to change who you are. You just have to stay true to who you are, the identity of who you're created to be. What is the identity of who God says you are? And you have to stay true to this is this is who God says I am. But it doesn't mean that because, this is your God-given design, so you stay that way, you don't grow, you don't, develop. That is stale. That stinks, right? You have to grow, you have to be willing to develop yourself. If you think about babies, babies don't have a choice. All babies grow eventually. That's what happened to you and I, is that we all grew up. Otherwise, we all still be in nappies. So you've got to, how do you do that? How do you actually step out of your comfort zone while still maintaining your God-given identities? You've got to strike a balance between your growth and your values, right? So grow in ways that actually aligns with your core values and principles. Because as a human being, well, as a leader, first of all, you're a human being and you must have your goals and objectives. You will have your goals and objectives because you're a human being, first of all. So striking a balance between your growth and your values requires that you're aligned your core values and your principles with your growth um, objectives or goals. And you also want to think about setting goals that actually stretch you. So you may want to identify some ambitious and yet realistic goals that will push you just a little bit beyond your current limits, whilst also, preserving your integrity and authenticity as who you are. You've got to maintain self-identity in the sense of your God-given design. You've got to maintain that. You have to act with authenticity and integrity even in the face of external pressures or temptations, because the truth is, when you step outside of your comfort zone, you're not comfortable. So you may well be faced with, external pressures or temptations or whatever it is. The bottom line is you're in a new zone that you're not feeling so comfortable in. And so you want to, in as much as possible, and it is really the only way out, the only way to really be comfortable being uncomfortable in your new zone is to act with integrity and integrity. Actionable challenges, maybe listen to panel of discussion on ethical decision making and leadership. We've got plenty of that within our podcast, past episodes and seasons. We've been going over a year now, so there is enough to go through, and you will find one that focuses on ethical decision making as a leader. You can maybe create a vision board that combines your growth, your aspirations actually with your core values, or practice being assertive. That way, you would learn how to uphold your boundaries and your values, especially in challenging situations. So, practically, how do you do that? Revisit your goals to ensure they remain aligned with your values and aspirations. It's vital to seek feedback from trusted colleagues or mentors to ensure that, the actions that you're taking actually reflect your truest, authentic self. A tip here for you is prioritizing your personal growth initiatives so that they align with your values and contribute to your long-term fulfillment, right? You want to surround yourself with individuals who support and reinforce your commitment to integrity. You want to be surrounded and work with people that will call you out and will actually help you to remain integral in all your actions. And I think I've said this many, many times, practice self reflection. This helps to ensure that your actions and decisions remain in alignment with your truest, authentic, God-given design. Again, there is another podcast on how to take a pause, how to reflect as a leader. Um, The fifth point I want to bring to our attention is criticism. There always will be criticism. If you go back to the, story I shared at the beginning, even when you prepare the land, to grow, let's say the potatoes or apple trees or whatever it is, criticism is like the weeds that would come, right? Trying to force its way into, I would say, the roots of the real thing, right? Or the fruits. So criticism is inevitable. It is part and parcel of leadership. Every leader will experience some level of criticism. It's what you do with it that actually, makes a difference or doesn't make a difference. So you have to learn to navigate and learn from, criticism if you're going to actually continue growing as a leader. How do you manage that? You've got to understand, you know, what criticism is, what role does it play as far as, again, me growing as a leader? Now, there can be horrible, harsh criticism that can crush you or cut you or even make you sometimes lose your confidence. But there is also constructive criticism that can actually serve as a catalyst for improvement. And you should 100% totally embrace that as an opportunity for growth. When a mentor or somebody you can trust can give you, productive or constructive criticism, that is a great, 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 great catalyst for growth. It's an opportunity you cannot afford to miss. And you want to also respond. Point number two I want to make is you want to respond constructively to criticism. So when you receive feedback, receive it with an open mind. Separate, any part of it that is constructive from any part that might appear to you as a personal attack. And, the pieces that are constructive, implement any actionable insights that you gain from it, right? Stay true to your values and convictions even in the face of criticism. If somebody criticizes you, don't change, what you're called to do or your God-given design just because you're trying to please somebody or stop, that next time they won't criticize me. It's not the way, it's not the best way to move forward as a leader. So some actionable challenges is, again, listen to interviews maybe with other leaders who have successfully navigated criticism and have used it to fuel the growth. One of the podcasts that I personally listen to as well is the Diary of the CEO, and they interview different, people and really just delve into their personal lives as leaders, as human beings, as leaders. And I love to listen to that because it helps me to, get different perspectives of, sometimes the kind of criticism that other people have received and how did they actually walk through that. You might also want to journal perhaps a recent instances of criticism and categorize, them into that was a constructive feedback or criticism, and that was a non-constructive criticism. You know what to do with the non-constructive ones, and you know exactly what to do with the constructive ones. Practically, develop a feedback action plan so that you can systematically address and learn from any criticism that you have. And then, secondly, cultivate a growth mindset by reframing some of the criticisms so that you can see them as an opportunity for you to improve rather than as a personal attack. A tip here is, seek feedback from diverse sources in order to help you gain a well-rounded perspective as far as perhaps what it is that you're doing. And I do that time and time and time and time again. My mentor Arlene Westerhoff, I mean, I cannot put value on how much she helps me and keeps me grounded in terms of helping me to see a different perspective from where I'm standing from. Another tip is embracing criticism as a valuable tool for your own self-improvement and for you to develop as a professional. Finally, remember the criticism says more about the giver than the recipient. So focus on the constructive elements of it and then just discard the rest. So, in conclusion, It's, the power of place. The place, our environment has such profound impact on us. The power of place, knowing, um, knowing your environment and how that influences your growth. Build the right environment for growth, or building, rather, shall I say, the right environment for growth requires intentional effort and continuous refinement. By making strategic changes, cultivating a proactive mindset, and surrounding yourself with supportive individuals, you can, without a doubt, create a nurturing environment that is conducive to your personal and professional growth. Remember, before you're a leader, you're a human being. And when you're a leader, you're simply influencing other people. And that requires you constantly don't stay stale, at whatever level you are, but again, wanting, desiring, and actually taking the right and appropriate steps to grow yourself as a leader. And remember, growth is a journey, it's not a destination. As long as you stay committed to your growth goals and embrace challenges as an opportunity for learning and development, then you will, without a doubt, become the best version of yourself. For that season. And then in the next season, you will have to keep moving and keep moving and keep moving. So, that's it from me for this week. I would love to hear what else would you add, or what did you think, from the various stories that I've shared. Share with us your thoughts, any other insights that you have gained yourself from listening today. Until I come your way next time, remember that the place, your environment, influences everything you are as a leader. And that's all for this week. You've been listening to Dr. Tina Alton with the Now Talks, the weekly podcast for women in leadership, brought to you by Nations of Women. All that remains is for me to say, have a fantastic week, stay safe, and reach out if you need any help now at nationsofwomen.com. Until next time, enjoy the pursuit of your potential, and remember, now is your time.